Does mental health play a big role in our growing up narrative, and whether it has a place in our traditional belief system as Arab American immigrant? Welcome to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. And today's panel is Dr. Ihab Abdelrehim and JD Yusef, my co-host. And we are gonna start by diving into the definition of mental health. Now, we spoke about this so many times, and we had a lengthy discussion about whether the stigma and the taboo of mental health in our cultures, right? And since COVID or post-COVID, mental health has been relevant and prevalent and very impactful on the new generation. So I thought we would discuss this today. Let's kick it off by reading the classic definition of mental health. Mental health encompasses an individual's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It is a state of well-being that enables us to cope with life's stresses, realize our abilities, learn and work effectively on contributing to our community. The beauty of our panel, we have a variety of backgrounds. I am born in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I came here when I was 19 years old. And my father is Palestinian Jordanian. His family settled in Jordan in the early 20th century. My mom is from Asalt, which is the Jordanian tribal community. So she is hardcore Jordanian Bedouin. And Ihab is born to Egyptian parents, and he came to the United States at age 2, so he's not even a first-generation American, nor am I. Now, I know my dad is heritage is Syrian Palestinian, but I'm not a child of a diaspora, basically. I was never displaced due to conflict or horrific war zone circumstances. We have JD Yusef. He is born to Palestinian parents in California, so he is first-generation American. So I would like to start with JD Yusef. How do you identify with that definition of mental health?
Yes, thank you for having me, Dr. Slava, Dr. Ihab. And I should set the tone. I am by no means qualified even to touch on this on a clinical subject, but everybody kind of goes through things, so I can only talk about my experiences, but hopefully next time we'll actually have a professional that's going to actually join us to dive a little deeper. But mental health growing up, especially as a first-generation American, coming from an Arab American household, it's a very taboo thing. Your mother may not know how to deal with it if, her children are going through something, and then, most likely the father is just a non-believer. It is what it is. I have statistics both from the African and the Arab world that will hopefully try to convey kind of these disparities and shed light onto kind of what's behind them. So
I guess my question to you, Yusuf, did you experience challenges with mental health growing up? And if that's the case, and like I said, on this platform, you can share as much as you want and as little as you want. Or do you have a story that you can share with us where you found yourself challenged with mental health? And when I say mental health, it doesn't mean that it's an extreme condition. I'm not saying like it's severe psychosis, severe manic depression, severe panic attacks. It just mental health in a sense that, what happened to me at that day and at that moment really dysregulated me to the point that I had to sit with myself and question, where am I mentally? Like, how's that going to affect my mindset? Is it going to limit myself? Is it going to make me judge certain things in the world and life in a certain way because I experienced that specific experience. So when we say mental health, it could be as simple as somebody says something to you this morning and triggers the dysregulation of your thoughts, dysregulation of behavior. You feel like you're distraught or stressed out a little bit, or angry or resentful or blaming somebody. It could be really a simple interaction. So can you think of someone or somewhere that done or said something that dysregulated your well-being, the mental well-being, that changed your belief system?
As you're speaking, I wanted to say no, but I have two things that just come to mind. So, we can kind of briefly touch upon them. But one instance that I can think of personally in my life is figuring out how to deal with failure, just coming out of law school, studying for the bar, and life doesn't stop for you, right? So again, how do you stay focused while all this crazy stuff is happening around you, the pandemic, deaths in the family, et cetera, right? That was kind of the first time where I started, I guess, questioning and learning more about mental health, because this was something that was constantly on my mind. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't not think about it because it meant a lot to me, right? Second instance, December 2023, I had an interaction at a restaurant, and there was a shooting at the restaurant, believe it or not. And that was a weird occurrence. And again, started to question some things. I had that kind of playing, in the back of my mind. And I guess mental health is different to everyone. Some people experience, like you said, some severe psychosis, or, just can be like, I can't get this thought out of my mind. Why? Right? So, it's these types of situations, although mine is kind of a bit extreme, but where you try to find that balance and try to maybe seek a therapist, because, you're looking for answers, and the only way to kind of unlock it is just to talk, right? Ask questions. You have to really dig deep. So those are two personal instances that are very relatively, like, within the last 4 to 5 years, kind of really spoke volumes to me. So
can you say that such experience modified your belief system, your social belief system? Did it make you feel that I don't want to go into public places anymore? Did it affect your behavior? Did it affect your lifestyle? And if it's yes, then where did you draw the support to regulate yourself again in order to move on? Because things are going to happen to us, right? And things affect us in a very different ways. People experience things differently. We perceive things differently, and we process the world around us differently. So what happened to you could happen to Ihab. Ihab's like, yeah, it's not a big deal. Things happen. I'm just going to go back to that establishment again. With me, I need to stay away for a while, or maybe never go back. That's the way I process things. And I guess the other question is, if it's yes, where did you draw the support in order to regulate yourself so you can move on with your life?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Dr. Slava. And ironically, I declined numerous news interviews about this situation. So we might one day talk about this, and it might be good for our viewers and listeners. But to answer your question specifically, since I did not regularly see a therapist, right? I didn't have one on speed dial. I guess naturally you just kind of look inwards and then talk to the people who you're comfortable with. So again, growing up in an Arab household, it's family. So you try to, for better or for worse, and even if you don't want to, you're going to have to communicate with them. But if something's wrong with you, they're going to know, right? Just from your voice or your behavior. So, and my actions weren't out of the ordinary. It's not like I wouldn't want to go back to the establishment I wouldn't mind going back. But when I do go back, I'm going to think twice, right? Like naturally, I'm going to sit with my back towards the door, or excuse me, away or towards the door. Yeah. Just naturally, I want to see who's coming in and out, right? But I guess that's something that I can point to from that. I mean, I did that before, but I'm more conscious of it now. So, but I didn't want these things to affect my behavior, right? So again, you might run into people who are really, really bad to you in life, right? Like a narcissist or something. Well, I never wanted like these people to affect who I was or who I eventually meet in the future, because I am who I am at my base. Mm-hmm. So again, going back to your question, I had to dig deep and figure out, okay, like where am I? Where was I before this? Where do I want to be? Right. And so you kind of work from that. So again, I can only speak about my own situation.
So it sounds like you drew your support from family. Did you find help? Did you find support to help you get over that? Or did you seek, and I'm not sure what your household is like, is it okay to seek a professional help to get you over that? Or was it the attitude, just get over it? It's going to be fine. Life goes on. Just get over it. That's how I grew up.
Yeah, more of the latter, which I know sounds super harsh, but again, culturally speaking, like, we just don't think twice about it, right? So it's like, to other listeners who didn't grow up in, a certain type of household, like, again, that sounds very harsh, but, I guess also to answer your question, I did seek help, yes. And then also I did rely on family, because that was kind of the most important thing to me. And naturally, I just feel more comfortable expressing things, right? I don't kind of hold back. I know no one's going to judge me.
So on that note, let's move on to Dr. Ihab. Can you share with us whether you identify with the definition of mental health?
I identify and I understand it from working in industry, and really in the last, I would say, 5 to 8 years, just hearing a lot about it, especially from those who are younger, and they really talk about mental health a lot. I mean, the anxiety, some people have depression. Personally, again, I'm not a clinician, and I can't diagnose people's mental health and what causes it for them versus other people. For me, I was brought up in a family where it never existed. So again, I never heard about mental health until, I want to say, when I got to college. Maybe I don't even remember talking about it in high school. So when I got to college, I started meeting people, from all around the world and different places in the United States, and then I started getting exposed to the anxieties and things like that of other people. And again, when I was young, the only mental health thing that I knew of personally was my cousin, and she had Down syndrome. And I don't think that's a mental health issue. It's just that she was born with it. It's nothing that, it is what it is. And outside of that, in our family, my dad was, I've never seen him have any mental health issues, at least externally, that I was able to observe. My mom, she may have had some things happen that really kind of depressed her or something like that. Something happened between my mom and my dad, and she got like upset or depressed, but she would bounce back quickly. I don't remember seeing her really kind of having any kind of long-term effects of any of the interactions between her and my dad. I want to say that the first time I really felt the anxiety of mental health was when I was in college myself. And with respect to that, it was mostly like getting ready for exams, things like that. But other than that, I never had anything going on in college other than being kind of anxious about taking an exam. outside of that, I was never anxious or had any issues whatsoever. But, I mean, there's other things that happen in graduate school, but, those were a little more real, a little more, tangible to me with respect to, having that kind of mental health, and anxiety. I had a little depression then as well. But again, it's the same thing that where, I have to lean on my parents. I've never spoken to really anybody professionally from childhood all the way up to really grad school. I never spoke to anybody. So if I ever had an issue, I would just lean on my parents, ask them something. And my dad would just go, "Oh, okay. Just think about it and just move on to the next thing. Don't worry about it that much." And he would always, kind of break it down in a way like, "Oh, he's right. It's not really that bad." So, but that's in a nutshell how I grew up.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Ever wonder how brands like Morning Brew, Airbnb, and Patagonia became household names? On Made It, we dive deep into the raw, unfiltered stories behind billion-dollar successes. No fluff, just founders sharing the wild pivots and gritty perseverance that got them there. Our latest interview with Alex Lieberman of Morning Brew and Nick Huber of Somewhere.com is about how boring businesses are the best ways to build lasting wealth and what they are excited to build next. If you want real founder stories about the brands we love and not just the highlight reel, check out Made It by Connor Tomkes. Thanks, guys. Now back to the pod.
And can you think of, or can you share with us a story that you can think of that dysregulated you emotionally, or you ask yourself like, wow, I can't believe this happened. This changes a lot of how I think of the world.
So I would say one of the big things for me, which caused me a lot of anxiety, which I think really affected my sleep patterns in general. When I was getting ready for my exams in graduate school, my oral exams, and boy, did I stay up and study and get ready for this thing. And you know what's funny? I just studied so much for it. I think I was over prepared beyond what I probably needed to be, but I studied day and night, and I was working in the lab as well as working in a machine shop. And I'd spend long hours, studying for this oral exam. And my sleep pattern really got dysregulated from it. And I don't think I've ever recovered from that. Even now, I don't sleep as well as I used to pre-graduate school. Pre-graduate school, I can put my head on a pillow. I'd be out cold and wake up and probably miss my classes. I'd be sleeping and it wouldn't matter. It's that when I got to that point, and it was, I think it lasted about a year, if I remember correctly, of studying. It took me, the studying is about a year's worth of study preparing for this exam. And when I got to the exam, I'm like, and I finished it. And we talked about this in one of the episodes, but I finished it. I'm like, whoa, boy, I really put too much into this. I didn't really need to. But again, preparing for it, you don't know what's going to happen. So you over prepare. Better to over prepare than not be prepared at all for the questions they ask. And
that's interesting what you said, because I've known you since undergrad and you're an amazing sleeper. But you said that you were the first encounter with anxiety was when you were an undergrad, not in graduate school. Am I getting this right?
So the first kind of anxiety I got in undergrad wasn't I lost sleep or anything like that. Yes. It was, my first semester of college. It was a wake up call. The way you study in college is very different than high school in the United States here. So exams are taken differently. Exams are written differently. in college. So I was my first semester, and I was a straight A student with respect to chemistry all through high school. I get to this chemistry class, general chemistry, first semester. Professor was amazing. Dr. Kazia was really good. I wasn't prepared for those kinds of tests. So, and I did one thing, which was a mistake on my part, was I really didn't study for that exam as much as I should have. I studied as if I was in high school. And again, studying for an exam in college is very different than studying for an exam in high school, as well as the exam is written differently. The way you take the exam is different, in a different environment. So I got to the point where, boy, I was going to get a B in this class. And I was like, I was heartbroken, I guess. I called my dad. I tell him, I can't believe, Dad, I'm getting a B in chemistry. And he looked at me. He didn't look at me. It was on the phone, and he had this. It was silent on his side.
He was looking at you.
Yeah, I can feel he was looking at me, but he was silent on the other side. I didn't hear anything, and I'm telling my story to him about the class, and I stop talking, waiting for him to answer. I literally thought it was he didn't answer for minutes, but it was only a few seconds. That's how long it felt. Like it was dead silent on his side. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Dad, are you still there? And he's like, yeah, I'm here. And I go, well, I don't think I should, I'm able to go through college. I'm not going to be good enough here. And he looked, he said to me, he looked at me, sorry, I can feel him looking at me. He said to me, he goes, and this is something very different than what he would say pre-college. He said to me, he goes, well, did you try hard on it? I'm like, yeah, kind of. And in my head, I'm saying, oh, I didn't really study as I should have. And I said, I did kind of try. And he's like, well, you got next semester, try harder, really study harder and you'll get the A, don't worry. And I'm like, whoa, I thought he was going to be ashamed of me. He was going to be like, oh yeah, you should quit. You're not made for it. But he was actually the opposite, which was a very weird. That was the first time my dad was supportive of me in any class I had up until that point. That was the first time. Every other time, he was like, oh, you can do, like I'd give him my grades. He goes, oh, you got 1B. Oh, you can do better next time. Or I would tell him I got like all A's. He'd be like, oh, good. Let's see if you can keep that up. So it's that same, I don't know if all Arab parents do that, but my parents did. So, my mom wasn't like that. My dad was. My mom was always like, oh, good. You did great. But yeah, that was the first time I encountered that. But the part I was talking about was where I lost sleep. That was graduate school. Mm-hmm. I never lost sleep in undergrad. Mm-hmm. I would just stay up all night and just study. I mean, people have these things in college.
They were studying.
Yeah, they all-nighters. I learned how to study. So I would study for the exam. And I would just kind of, maybe do my homework and then I'd pull an all-nighter for something and go in and take the exam. And that's all I did. And for the rest of my college career, again, graduate school was different. Again, everything changes. It's more research oriented than class oriented. So that was a new thing for me. But that's where I lost that sleep pattern. It's weird now. I fall asleep on the couch still as if I was in grad school studying for this oral exam. I remember you were there, Slava, so
Well, yeah, you slept on the couch in our apartment for at least 3 months, 4 months, maybe. And
at least.
Papers everywhere. And since that day, his habit, he almost with an association to that experience that the couch is going to help me sleep. If I fall asleep, it's fine. And majority of the time, I don't even wake him up and send him to bed because I know if I wake him up, he's not going to sleep. But going back to the role of mental health in our traditional belief system, I am not surprised that Abu Ihab, your father, Allah yarhamu yahsin ilayh, may he rest in peace, gave you that advice, because we touched base on this concept of the immigrant mindset that failure is not an option. Giving up is not an option. You gotta do whatever you want to do. You better do it to your best capability, and you better try hard and exhaust every resource and every tool before you quit. So quitting, giving up, failing is not an option, because they have sacrificed so much. They left everybody they love and everything they know to displace themselves for you to have a better life. So to him, it's like, you know what? He's a wise man. He said, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm not going to preach him and make him quit school. But he told you, try harder. He believed in you too. I know he did, although he had a really funny way of showing it. But it was tough love. And I talked to Dr. Massis about it on our episode, that it was tough love. Our parents did not sugarcoat anything, because life did not sugarcoat things for them. And I think they wanted to transmit that into our belief system. If I didn't get it that way, you're not going to get it this way. And you better come to terms with the fact that life is hard. People are not going to give you a lot of chances. It's not going to be easy climbing that social ladder. It's not going to be easy to get your graduate degree. You know, like my dad always said, that your education is your invitation to the party. That's when people start listening to you. They want to hear your opinions. They want to hear your thoughts. They want to enjoy your mindset. So your dad is very wise to do that, because he knew that, you know, you breeze through high school. He believed you're smart. He told me that so many times. He believed that you're brilliant, and he was so proud. And he used to tell me, I don't know where he gets it from. You know, it's like, you know, your mother-in-law used to say, and me, we're very simple people. You know, we take things with a lot of stride, and we're very proud people. But if God hasn't planned this for us, we don't argue about it. We don't fight for it, because we just take it and accept it the way it is. And that's God's will. So his belief system, whatever God gives you, delivers to you, just take it and live with it and be happy. But when it came to you, he did not say, oh, this is what God wanted for you. He asked you to work harder. And thank God he did, because you achieved what you tried to achieve. So it sounds like mental health did not have a big role in the narrative of our upbringing, right? So our parents didn't take that. There are more things important to them that actually was impactful in the raising their children, the narrative of raising their children. You know, seek strength from God, go pray, spirituality, make sure you're good, decent, proud person, civil, good to others. You want to treat people like you want them to treat you. If you don't have a good thing to say, bite your tongue and swallow the blood. Don't say anything at all. You know, compliment in public, criticize in private. Those are all traditional, ancient principles that our parents practiced and made it very, very important, and played a huge role in our, the growing up narrative of our childhood. Do you guys think it's a generational thing? Yusef could be my son. I mean, I've been married 33 years. So that's a whole new generation than me and Ihab. Of course, our parents and my in-laws, even more different of a generation. Let's start with Yusef. Do you think it's a generational thing, Yusef?
Yes, I think it's a generational thing, and also being children of a diaspora, these are some of the things that are the last thing on their mind. You know, they're trying to survive. They're trying to learn what insurance is. I remember there was a comment made by a priest, where we used to live about how, our community, these Christian Arabs don't learn their faith when they come over here. They're struggling, it's not as easy to plug in, and it's difficult, right? So, and after Dr. Ihab goes, I have a little bit of, facts I want to kind of share with you guys about traditional beliefs, in theme. So.
Sure. So, Ihab, do you believe it's a generational thing?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Chris from the Financial Philosophers Podcast, and I'd like to invite you to come check out our show. We explore the nuances of personal finance on topics that are both simple and complex. Rather than regurgitating the same financial rules of thumb you've heard over and over again, we do a deep dive with real-life examples about compelling and relatable financial topics. I guarantee you will walk away with something new you didn't know before. Come nerd out with us, and let's take this financial journey together.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely a generational thing. With my parents, my dad, again, my parents came here. They were born and pretty much raised in Egypt. I came here when I was 2, so I kind of was raised here. So when they came here, all that was on my dad's mind. Remember, he wasn't an engineer. He wasn't a scientist. He was a blue collar worker and started working as a security guard initially for I think it was $1 an hour in New Jersey in 1970. And about a year or so later, maybe 2 years, he got a job at the railroad, and it was, I think he went up to $3 an hour, $4, which was a big deal back then. And all he did was just work. There was nothing on his mind. I did not see anxiety in any way except him working in order to pay bills and take care of the family, right? That's pretty much all he did. And that generation, I think, and if I went back to my grandparents, now I did not see what they did. My dad told me stories. They, on my dad's side, they had a farm and they worked the farm. They had cows they had to milk every day. Chickens, eggs, they had everything on that farm, goats. And they actually had farmland too. So they didn't really think about anything but you get up in the morning, kids went to school, and if you're old enough, you worked on the farm, or when you came home, you worked on the farm. There was no thought of anxiety or anything like that, or having any kind of depression, because you're busy the whole time. It's not on your mind. But me, growing up here, here from 1970, again, I learned from them with respect to mental health, or the absence of mental health. The word mental health did not exist in our house. It was, I don't remember hearing the word mental health ever. I don't even think I heard mental health until my parents passed away. They never talked about it. So it's not something that I was privy to in a way that it was, they were talking about it all the time, about their mental health or other people's mental health. It never happened. Again, like I said, mental health was something I started to hear about when I was in college, graduate school. And then when I got into industry, not much mental health going on. Nobody talked. People may have had some things going on, but nobody talked about it. And then after that, after industry, is when I started hearing it a lot more. And it's probably because I'm in a medical environment, and mental health now is more prevalent, as well as, it's one of the questions that are asked on your intake form. When you come to the office, they ask these questions about your physiological, mental. There's all these questions, and these questions are asked in all doctors' offices. When I go, they ask me those same questions. So it's kind of these blanket questions that are asked. So again, I I never was raised thinking about mental health until later on in life. And it wasn't part of my upbringing. It was more of the people I interacted with later on in life.
It sounds like we're in agreement when we say it is generational, because when I talk to Americans, my generation, the X-gens and the generation older than me, they do tell me that mental health, it was, of course, mental health is part of us. And it's part of our psyche, psychology. It's our, like I said, psychological, emotional well-being. Of course we had it since the beginning of time. But it was not addressed, nor it was socially dressed in a way for us, my generation and older. Anywhere you go, even the United States, Europe, the Western world, or the Eastern world. But the fascinating thing is how the Eastern world managed to keep the concept suppressed enough that when we went to Egypt, Ihab, your cousin's children, one just finished pharmacy school, the other one is finishing her business administration, bachelor's. They did have frustrations, but I agree with you. I think the culture of how we surround each other, the families always together, and when you walk in the street, you feel like you are seeing family with every single face you interact with.
Never alone.
Never alone, never alone. Like when I was standing in line when we were getting Ihab's ID, I was talking to this young lady. She was telling me her story, how her struggle trying to get an ID and trying to take time off. And they just opened up. It's almost like they have nothing to fear. They have nothing to hide. We are in it together. So you feel that the society is going through the same thing together at the same time. So you don't feel like, is something wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? I'm the only one that's going through this. Nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention. No, everybody is going through it together at the same time. So you feel that support. And I think being a professional therapist in the Eastern traditional world is not very liquidative, profession, because we would draw from our family and friends and the elder and the seniors in our family and neighbors and even strangers in the street before we even think about seeking help from a professional. Because also, I think, and you guys can agree or disagree with me, is we trust family more than we trust anybody else. So I know when I was growing up in Saudi that I can go talk to my cousin and vent out, and I know that she's not going to share that with anybody else. I trust her. So there's that traditional tribal connection, and the consistent experience with your tribal connection produce that trust. So when you have that trust, and I teach that to my team, that consistent experience produce trust produce confidence that you can actually go to that person and seek their help without, fearing of judgment, fearing of being criticized, fearing for being belittling your emotions. I used to go to my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know, but I'm just really nervous about this test. It's like, you know it. Calm down. It's enough studying. Go play outside with your brothers and sisters. And then when I go play outside, she will call my cousin. My cousin come in, and before you know it, I forgot about my exam. And then I woke up the next morning. I take my exam. I aced it. So you draw that the strength. You draw that support. You draw that encouragement from the tribal connection that we have. But that's what the Western world used to be. I think the industrial age, where people were scattered all over the country in a very concentrated pockets where the work is, people just left home. When you leave home and your money runs in your hands and you become, a business owner, or you go to school and you don't want to even go back home, then the fiber, the tribal connection, that fiber just get dismantled. And before you know it, you feel you're alone. Then when you have, incidences that, oh my God, I got dysregulated. I got triggered by this mean person, or that person is discriminating against me or being racist, or, they fire me because I don't look the same, I don't act the same, or I don't speak the language very well. Then you feel like that's when the victimhood, right? I'm a victim. They're to blame. I didn't do anything wrong. And then it's like, oh, where's my tribe? Your tribe is not there. Your tribe is back home. Then you seek the therapist. And that's the whole therapy market. I think it got launched during the industrial period. But that said, let's give JD Yusef the chance to present his data.
Yeah, so kind of in line with our subject, cultural perceptions and stigma regarding traditional beliefs, both in the Arab and African world. So briefly, mental illness is often attributed to spiritual, ancestral causes, right? Leading many to seek help from traditional or even religious healers. And actually, I learned a little bit about that from your time in Egypt, Dr. Slava, about that type of medicine. So this is according to WHO. There's a prevalent stigma that surrounds mental health in our regions, resulting in ridicule, shame, and reluctance to seek treatment. I think that's very, very telling from, again, kind of this narratives that we've been sharing. Some of the stigmatizing attitudes, this is really interesting. Last one for right now. A multinational study across 16 Arab countries found that 26.5% of individuals exhibited stigmatizing attitudes towards mental health. 31% had poor working knowledge of it, and 28% held negative attitudes towards seeking help. And that is according to PMC. So, and this is nearly half of the Arab youth believe that seeking mental health treatment is frowned upon in their society. That's huge. That's huge.
Do you know why that is? Do you have an inkling of this could be the reason why? I have my reasons, but I would like you to share your reason, JD Yusef.
Our culture, and it's not we're not a monolith, so I think people can find this in their cultures, but there's a lot of pride, right? We come from something. We aren't just these desert dwellers, right? I mean, we literally took the Europeans out of the Dark Ages, literally, right? So a lot of people forget that. So that being said, I think we hold ourselves and one another to a higher standard, and that standard sometimes, I mean, to be frank, it could be toxic. It is what it is. I've always said, take the good in both cultures and toss the bad in both cultures, right? I mean, that's how one should live. Again, if you want to progress, learn, if you're not learning in your life, you're not living. So
I agree with you 100%. And pride is what makes us feel guilty when our child is seeking help from a stranger. That's really basic, the simple principle of it. And my mom used to tell me, why did you talk to your cousin? Why couldn't you come to me? I said, Mom, we're just playing outside and we're talking about school, and I just said something. Because then my cousin went to her mom and she said, oh, Slava's very stressed about this. And then her mom, my mom's sister, called my mom. It's like, what's wrong with Slava? So it goes around, right? It's no secret she was just worried about me. I don't blame her for that. So my mom comes to me, it's like, is it true you were that stressed that you discussed it with your cousin? And it's almost like, it's the shame. You can't help but they feel I'm embarrassed, like I'm not good enough for my child in order to, share with me their emotions. And many times, like we mentioned, I'll tell my mom, something is bothering me. So and so said that. And she said, don't worry about them. Right? It's karma. It goes around and around. It comes back to its owner. So it has nothing to do with you. They made the decision to be mean to you. They made the decision to hurt you. You make the decision how to respond to it. Why is it hurting you? It's their words. Those are not your words. But they used it to hurt me. How can they do this to me? And she'll say, okay, go pray, or go have something to eat, or go take a nap. And I couldn't understand it when I was younger. But what she was telling me, take a break from thinking, take a break from processing your emotions. distract yourself, do something else, and everything will be all well. Do you agree with that, Ihab?
Yeah, I mean, again, they definitely wouldn't recommend going to any therapist or anything like that. Again, I never heard of a therapist until I want to say graduate school. I don't think anybody talked about going to therapy when they were in high school or college, but I can see the anxiety in people. People were depressed a little bit in college. High school didn't have any of that really. But it's funny, as I went through different phases in my life, starting in high school, for instance, high school, college, graduate school, things and people that I was interacting with and what I was exposed to, I actually started seeing the anxiety. It got people more anxious, more depressed as you went on to from high school to college to graduate school, and then beyond graduate school, I really I did not have any issue with that outside of graduate school until again I got into this medical field in the dental offices. If I did speak to a therapist, I would never tell them because they would just not be. I don't want to say they wouldn't be supportive. They'd be like, you should have come and talked to us. We're the best resource for you since we know you more than anybody, and one of the things I remember my dad saying whenever I got anxious for something, he would say, you should go pray. And, I'm like, okay, and I'd go pray. But for me, again, I wasn't really linked to prayer as much as my mom and dad were, because they're, a little more religious, more pious, that kind of thing. But yeah, to me, if I go pray, it's not like when they pray. It's very different. When they pray, they're really kind of mind, body is into the prayer. And it really, I remember my dad, when I see him coming back from work, he's worked a long day and he's exhausted. He'll go in and he'll have a prayer he does. I remember what time, let's say the evening prayer. And I can see he'd come back and he was just it looked like it all melted away. And that prayer worked for him. It worked. And luckily that in Islam, there's prayers 5 times a day, because if people are really using that to help them kind of cope with the struggles in life, their mental health, whatever it might be, then that's a really good thing, because that's a kind of a self-help. It's really interesting. You're helping yourself by praying to God, but you're really doing it yourself. There is no God in front of you, but you're thinking God's in front of you. So it's just kind of in your mind, you've put yourself in a place and almost have that feeling of God surrounding you. And it's what makes everything kind of melt away. And I think that's what my parents really, why they never really were affected with anxiety or depression or anything like that.
Well, when you meditate 5 times a day, you are totally regulated, or constantly regulated, because so meditation, deep meditation, all you're doing when you meditate is you release the resistance. So whether you're resisting a comment, or you're resisting somebody's action towards you, or you're resisting a concept, you're resisting something that you read on the news, you just release that resistance and just let it go. So 5 times a day, Fajr, Dhuhr, Al-Asr, Maghrib, Al-Isha, right? The whole time through the day, there's no room for that baggage to build up. over time. So now the whole business of meditation right now is meditate before you get up, to work, meditate at night before you go to bed, meditate before you get up, meditate before you go to bed. Start the day with meditation, end the day with meditation. It's exactly the same concept, because a salah or prayer in our culture is you're disconnecting from reality. You're reconnecting with your creator. It's your time alone with yourself. You're regulating yourself. You're recharging. You're right. Just like when you plug your phone, right? Give the phone a break. Let it charge a little bit. Turn your phone off. It's exactly the same thing, because your mind is your phone, constantly processing the world around you and the life and the life event that you're going through. So that makes sense. It is a traditional, it is simple action, but like you said, you feel like everything melting away. It's almost like you can start your day 5 times new in one day. You're not starting a new day. You're restarting your day 5 times. How refreshing is that? It's like taking 5 showers, so the whole concept is brilliant. And that's why, although my parents were not that religious nor spiritual, they're all about facts. And like I mentioned in other episodes, it's more valuable in my household to be right than to be loved. So it's all about facts, because also immigrant, and my dad, especially, the whole Palestinian mentality is don't believe anything unless it's a fact. Just hold on to the fact, and you're not going to drown in the ocean of emotions, an ocean of perception and misconception. Just hold on to the facts. So it's very important to be right and make sure that you have the facts right in order to protect yourself from all that, turmoil of emotions. As we are getting close to the end of our hour, my last question to both of you, whether you experienced discrimination or bullying in your childhood or through school. If yes, how did you deal with that? If no, what do you think about kids being bullied and their effect on their mental health? Do you think they should seek help, or do you think that, we need to go back to their traditional tribal connection?
So, me growing up, I'll give you kind of the parts where I was bullied. It happened when I was young, and I was in Jersey City still, and it was, again, remember Jersey City segregation just ended, late 60s, mid 60s.
65.
And so, and we got to Jersey City in 1970. So segregation was still there. So it doesn't go away when you kind of snap your fingers and it's gone. It doesn't work like that. So when I got to school, when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, you can see the segregation in Jersey City specifically. You had the black communities, Hispanic, white, and you just didn't cross over in these areas. And my first kind of realization of this is when somebody asked me in school, and I can't remember what grade it was. I was very young. They asked me, like, "Are you black?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm Egyptian. I'm not black." So, and they were kind of confused because they didn't know what Egyptian was. And so I went and told my dad, I'm like, hey, this is what they asked me. And he goes, don't get involved in that. This is something that's kind of in the United States. We don't have that. We don't look at color in Egypt because there's black, there's white. It doesn't matter there. But here it does. And he was alluding to, probably slavery, but the segregation part that just went away, maybe less than 10 years prior. So, that was one of the big things. And then the other one where I was having fights every single day almost is when, in Iran, and they had the student hostages, I believe. And they had them for about a year. It was during the Carter administration. And when Reagan came in, they released the hostages. But during that time, because of my name, they thought I was Persian. I was Iranian. And I'm like, I'm Egyptian. I'm from a different continent. It's not even on the same continent. they didn't understand that. So people would just say, like they blame me for that. These people were just kidnapped and held hostage. And I'm like, we have nothing to do with that. That, you're in a completely different country. But in their minds, Egyptians, Arabs, Persians, they're all the same thing in their minds. Because again, think about the segregation thing, right? They're looking at skin color, right? So that's what they did. They kind of grouped us all together, and they thought we were one group because of our darker skin. Now, aside from that, we have different skin of all different colors in the Arab world and Persia and all that. But it's just in their minds, it says, oh, you're darker skinned, you're Arab, you're Persian, you're Iranian, you're the same thing. So that's where I got into a lot of these fights. And I asked my dad, I said to my dad, what am I supposed to do with all these fights? And he goes, well, if you get into a fight, don't start it, but also defend yourself if something happens. And that's what I used to do. And that is kind of it was a wake up call. And during that whole time, I never felt like, the word bullying was not part of our conversation. It was just these people were just against us. Right. And and again, when I saw bullying, now when I got to when that finished and when I got to high school, I saw bullying, but it was something that you bully somebody, and then, it's kind of in the hallways, and then everybody goes their separate ways. There's no social media. The problem I think now is that social media is really not a good thing for kids, especially if they're so in tune with it, and that everything about social media is that important to them, that if somebody says something about them on social media, it's a crisis. And these poor kids, some of them I've read that some kids commit suicide because of this. And it's sad. And I think I wish that people can just disconnect from social media, get back to basics, and, have conversations, but nobody does that anymore. Mm-hmm. Really. Yeah. I think it's getting worse as the generations move on, right? It's just becoming more and more disconnected. Like, I like to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, but somebody may text me and I would say, oh, why don't you just call me or talk to me about it? Yeah. Well, we don't want to confront you. We don't like confrontation. They would tell me that. And I'm like, well, there's no confrontation. We're just discussing something. There's no confrontation at all.
I believe that not every conversation is a confrontation. And I try to teach my team that, because we have a range of ages in our team through all the 3 offices. And I'm sure we're going to have even a wider range of personality as we, continue and build up the whole franchise dream. And the other thing is, like I said, you're not responsible for what people say. You're responsible for what you respond in your reaction. But I agree with you, Ihab, 100% that we need to go back to train our children how to have eye-to-eye conversation, how to sit down in front of somebody and just feel comfortable instead of putting the devices between humans, between us. Then we need to sit down and teach them how to have a true conversation. And I don't mind having as heavy, detailed conversations as possible. We can have conflict as long as it's not controversial, as long as nobody is getting hurt. We can have a conversation that, different opinions. I respect your opinion. It is your opinion. It doesn't mean that I need to cancel you, because if you don't think like me exactly, then I don't want to talk to you. But how boring is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to talk to the same people. And we talked about this yesterday, Yusef. I don't want to be with people that just like me, because I'm not going to know more about the world, and I'm not going to grow as a human being. So how about you, Yusef? Is there something we would like to share with us as far as an experience, discrimination, bullying, that you learned from, and how did you manage to deal with it on the mental health level?
Real quick to follow up Dr. Ihab's last comment regarding confrontation. I'm putting this on a shirt too, but conflict is not fatal if communication is vital, right? You know, if you think it's a conflict and you think it's an argument, well, it's going to be an argument and a conflict. So that's what you're going into that conversation with. Just, again, be civil, look people in the eye, have a conversation. It's okay. You're going to have issues, but it's how you handle yourself in those issues, right? That being said, a good segue. How did I handle myself being an Arab in the South, right? That was very challenging. You know, again, the first time I ever felt different, non-American, was in the 5th grade, you know, during 9/11, right? I had a student put it on TV, had a student basically say that it was me that said, "Oh, cool," when they saw the, you know, so it was, you know, they're showing it to 5th graders. Someone said it, but the teacher automatically blamed me, you know, so they're trying to kick me out of school in the 5th grade. I'm like, what? What's going on? You know, a wake up call, right? You know, and it's easy to say just because you dealt with it and you overcame, you know, just deal with it, right? But every situation is different. I can't tell you that I, you know, got over it super quick. Like, it happened progressively, elementary school, middle school, high school. By the time college came around, I was waiting for people to like roast me educationally or more intellectually, right? You know, they would always get my religion wrong, or, you know, just look at my skin color, right? Or, you know, whatever the case may be. So, I don't know. I kind of use it as kind of like a badge of honor, in an odd way, taking something negative and turning it into positive in order to figure out how to overcome and deal with it, right? So, that's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, thank God for our immigrant parents, honestly. I mean, probably as children, we did not see that much value in their experience and their wisdom, but here we are on a podcast platform. We're talking about it. We're all three of us adult professionals, entrepreneurs. It's from the, you know, from the ground up. They built us, you know, on these aspects. So I guess the answer to the question whether mental health played a big role in our growing up narrative answer is no, not my generation. So, and it sounds like with even JD Yusef, he's a younger generation. Because of the immigrant parents. I think immigrant parents, and me and Dr. Massis agreed on it on our episodes, they all have the same story. They all have the same approach, same style of raising their children. And there's a reason behind it. We can talk about this for many, many, many episodes. I think we just scratched the surface, honestly. And I would love to come back to it and dive a little bit deeper into the subject, because it's fascinating to me. So unfortunately, we have reached the end of our hour. So thank you so much, Dr. Ihab and JD Yusef, for joining us today on this episode. And I am sure many are going to come down the pipeline. And this is not the last time we're going to talk about mental health in Arab American immigrants. Just as a reminder, these episodes are uploaded every single Wednesday on a weekly basis on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and also they are available for you to listen to and to watch whenever you want, wherever you are, on the Greenwood Dental Partners YouTube channel. So please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell in order for you guys not to miss any episodes. And thank you for all our supporters. We have reached 2,500 downloads, right? We just launched in January, so we are picking up a lot of traction. So please don't stop sharing and liking, because we cannot do this without you. And if you think about any topic, put your comments on and the questions and any topics that you would like us to discuss next time. We'll be very happy to do so. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you next time.